as painful as it is, in business, sometimes getting fired takes you to a better place. And you said you'd been fired a bunch of times, and I understand you got fired by Rascal Flatts, which actually turned out to be another good thing for you, and a even better thing for Taylor Swift, maybe. Tell us a story about how that happened.
So I was out on the Flats tour, and at that time, that was the biggest tour in country music. And the hard thing for me is we were playing bars, we were playing clubs, we get this tour, and the way the Flats tour would work is you would play, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but we would play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We would have like one day off in these bars and clubs, and we would join their big tour on the weekend. And it just didn't work for me. I mean, we got out there and we had 15 minutes, which I've never done really well with. It just wasn't a great fit. And I don't do real well, never have, when people start telling me, they start applying more rules to what I'm doing. So it just was a bad fit. And so I got fired at Madison Square Garden. If you're going to go down, that's the place to go down. And I got irritated that weekend. We had an altercation with the band, and I decided that at Madison Square Garden, I didn't know if I'd ever be back there, so I was going to burn my one chance. I told the guys, I said, we're not playing 15 minutes tonight. We're playing 40 minutes tonight. And I went out and we played. It was a great show. I actually read about the next day. They didn't call me. I read about it in the press that, that I'd been replaced by Taylor Swift. So Taylor's great and interesting part of country music history. Taylor came up after and she was real sweet. And she's, I hope there's no hard feelings. I said, no. I said, this crowd's going to be great for you. This is exactly where you should be. I said, all I ask, and she was a brand new artist. Like she had just put her first single out. And I said, all I ask is that I get your first gold record. And honest to God, David, it was like 2 weeks later, she walks up on the bus. We were playing some festival and she had her first gold record. And it said to Eric, thanks for playing too long and too loud on the Flats tour. I sincerely appreciate it, Taylor. And it's now in the Country Music Hall of Fame. She went on to do some pretty good things. But what was interesting about that is that it comes down to perspective. It comes down to vision. That just wasn't what I wanted to be. We got banished to rock clubs. We got banished to places that nobody wants to be banished to. But what I found there were a lot of people like me that country music wasn't talking to. We would play these rock clubs at 10 o'clock at night, and I saw, 40 or 50 guys. And at that time, it was a very soccer mom-driven format. And they're in there listening to classic rock and roll. When we would come out and play, and they started to get it. It started to grow. Nobody knew it was growing because it was growing one fan at a time, but it started to kind of grow at that time. And then I got a call from Bob Seger out of the blue. I picked up the phone and it was Bob. And I'll never forget it. He goes, he's got this real like raspy, like Michigan, accent. And he goes, hey, Eric. He goes, Bob Seger here. He goes, you really get fired from the Flats tour? And I was like, yeah, I did. And he said, yeah, I'd love for you to come out and play with us. And he said, all I can offer you is 45 minutes to open for him. And I was like, this time I had one album. My album was 37 minutes long. So I was sitting there going, I'm going to have to figure out how to extend songs, So it was a lifeline by a guy who's a musical hero of mine. It was like, it's going to be okay. I like what you're doing. Why don't you come out and play in front of our crowds? And that led to a whole different world for us when we saw what that was.